For a film that says there's no time to die, it thinks it's cool. Thinks it's sweet time to do so.
No time to die, but certainly time to have 3 identikit chases through streets of various European cities and speeches with an indecipherable villain. Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, like the COVID vaccines, he gets less effective as the season wears on. I welcome my friend and yours, Dr. Luke. Where's me booster, Gledall? How are you doing today, Luke?
Yes, I'm good. I don't know how to follow that one, Rich. I mean, I don't know. I hope we can be a jab in the arm for all Wednesdayites.
Oh, it's good stuff. Yeah, it's so. How you ready for Halloween? You prepared? You got the candies ready?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just still thinking about dealing with this never-lasting wave of Darren Moore.
I would recommend against going as Darren Moore to any Halloween parties. I just think it's a very difficult line to tread. And much as I trust you, I just feel you're just only so many steps away from being very culturally inappropriate.
That's fair. Yeah. I feel like we're both talking about very different things right now, which is fine. But let's how about we all get on the same page and talk about the week that was for Sheffield Wednesday.
That was the week that was there. Yeah, let's do that.
Breaking HooHoos. Really,
the only news per se was our match against Cambridge. We've completed the first leg of our Oxbridge challenge for this season with a midweek visit to Cambridge.
Shame about the boat race.
Shame about the boat race. Maybe we would have had half a chance in the boat race.
You reckon? Who do you reckon would be the cocks in the Sheffield Wednesday boat race?
Oh, I mean, it's best if it's a little person, isn't it? Because you're not carrying the weight. I think Barry Bannan likes shouting at people, and it wouldn't be adding too much sort of ballast to drag along. So maybe he's an ideal cox, and sometimes he acts like a little bit of a cox. So
there we go.
Would you have an alternative suggestion?
No, I think that sounds pretty decent. Like, I mean, does he need to? Yeah, I guess he feels a need to point. You can't point and row at the same time, though, can you?
That could be disruptive, couldn't it? To fly.
It could well be.
Yeah, balance is all important. Yeah, too much gesticulating really could get you literally in the water. Yeah, but we weren't there for a boat race, Luke. We were there for a football match.
Yeah, yes, we were.
As someone who was listening on the Cambridge commentary, they couldn't believe that they were playing Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. It's nights like this, Trevor. Sheffield Wednesday visiting under the lights, just over 7,000 packed in. These are the special nights, aren't they? Oh, it was very hard to not feel an element of how the mighty have fallen midweek against Cambridge, and very much also ran, particularly for most of that first half.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty remembering a lot of this game, I'm going to be honest. I know that you said you made some notes for this one. I didn't particularly. I remember being particularly underwhelmed with what I saw, though. Yeah, yep. Many whelms were undered. No, just sort of, we didn't, once again, another game where it just felt like we didn't have much of a plan. We didn't have much presence in the game. And there were several chances for the opposition, and we didn't really look like we had a reliable route to make chances of our own.
The first sort of big chance I made a note for them was a sort of poor punch by Bailey Peacock Farrell. This was on the 10th minute when he was sort of left watching and hoping as the Cambridge player headed it over, but he would have been powerless to do anything about it if it was on target. And then 10 minutes later, obviously, we conceded a really poor goal, a sort of poor, the corner that almost didn't make the near post. It was bobbling, but was flicked backwards by a player on the ground, on his knees almost, and sort of snuck in at the near post. Slightly worrying trend now of conceding at set pieces that we're starting to build up.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a trait this team is building up, isn't it? Which is maybe a bit of foreshadowing for today. But yeah, we don't seem particularly comfortable with thinking about these things.
I do think the most common sort of we were texting a little bit back and forth, and a very common theme was FFS wing. Because Wing had some chances. Wing could have made some things happen. And in particular, the 35th minute, Dunkley played an absolutely unbelievable defence-splitting pass through the Wing one-on-one with the keeper. But he just looked completely unconvincing and didn't really test the keeper from it. We had a start for Deli Bashiru, and I think he really made the most of it. You know, in terms of positives, he really shone all the way through the game, I think. He had an effort early on, 38th minute, and then we had this. The last thing that happened in the first half was this bizarre booking. Patterson was booked. Bannon got into a scuffle because a second ball came on the pitch, and I think he should have been allowed. He thought he should have been allowed to retake his set piece. I think because of that.
Yes, I kind of agree with him, to be honest with you.
And then the Cambridge player dawdled in terms of chucking the other ball away. So Bannon got very mouthy and shovey. A lot of their players kind of ganged up on Bannon, and then Patterson sort of stood up for Bannon and he got a yellow card. He was the only player in a kind of ruckus of about 6 to get a yellow card. It was just a bit odd, and we ended the half with both Bannon and Patterson sort of berating the ref, and I can only imagine Bannon was saying, I should have got the yellow card, which is a strange thing to be, arguing for. In terms of other notes, just the second half was just dreadful. I think another one of these halves where they were very happy with the goal they'd got. They didn't have any impetus or drive to do anything much more, which does put them in quite a dangerous position because they keep a threat or two on the pitch. We have to commit, and then they get chances on the break, and just so much bad play, poor passing, things breaking down. Wing again had several chances. He did another one of those volleys that now seems to be one of his specialities, that kind of, you think surely he's just got to make a contact, and somehow the contact he makes sends it straight up in the air. But we were saved by Deli Bashiru, who not just content having a shining performance in a very poor team, did actually grab himself a goal. So it was a hopeful long ball forward. Berahino sort of battled and flicked the ball on, and Deli Bashiru took the ball down, took a moment to compose himself, and then calmly slotted it across the front of the goal into the far corner. And from that point on, that it becomes one of these games where we should have probably gone on and got a winner, probably not having deserved it on the balance of play, but it was all Wednesday after that point. And probably the best chance we made was Palmer setting up a really good 1-2 with Bannon, if you remember that great moment.
I think I do. Yeah. I really think I've kind of managed to kind of take a lot of this game outside of my memory, I think.
Which is a sane and sensible thing to do.
Exactly. I remember that really, actually the phrase was fucking hell wing, which I think we repeated like a good 5 or 6 times, which I think is probably a new catchphrase for us. Really, I'll be
Yeah,
honest. I remember that chance which Wing should have buried. And I know I said to you that he punched the ground in a more unconvincing manner than he hit the
yeah,
ball.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess this is an interesting thing. Like the nature, I think a lot about the nature and context of what we do on this podcast and how I think, like all Wednesdayites, we're very excited for new signings. We are optimistic. We have to look to the elements of optimism. The
yeah,
season gets started. That's the typical thing. I think we've been fairly realistic every time that we've made predictions about Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think we've
yeah,
really got carried away with things. I think the thing that I often find, and I kind of reflect on my own disappointments with Sheffield Wednesday, and when we look back and do this, I think I kind of expect more moments of brilliance from talented players. I think that's the thing that I'm
yeah,
kind of over like wholesale disappointed about with Sheffield Wednesday. I do want to say, like, I mean, there's still a lot of time to kind of turn this around, but my prediction that our player of the season would be Lewis Wing is pretty far off. The only thing I think, and I mean, this is something that will tie in and foreshadow our main coverage of today's game.
yeah,
We were recording the podcast on today at home against Lincoln. I think maybe one of the small crumbs of comfort that me and you can take, and I imagine probably a lot of other Wednesdayites as well. I don't think we're particularly unique in this. Me and you can feel vindicated in the promising things we've ever had to say and seen of Fizeo Dili Bashuru
mm,
previously, FDB, everything we've seen has seen that the guy has a bit of talent and something different and promise. And now
yeah,
this game, to focus on the game we're going to get into, and especially midweek against Cambridge, crowned with his first senior goal for Sheffield Wednesday.
yeah. Absolutely. He's I mean, all the things we have been talking about so positively, he's living up to those at this point in time. And it's tricky because obviously we don't know. The temptation for me, looking at this, is just to go like, how come we've seen so little of him? We had so many desperate performances last season, and he just didn't seem to get a look in.
No, I know.
And
well, especially because it was such a myriad of again, we went with it's been a core dynamic of Sheffield Wednesday now in the more, which I'm still confused about. But very much Monk, and possibly even further back looking at Jos Lukai. So it's been largely kind of there, but this mentality of the 3-5-2 or the 5-3-2, depending on what it is. So we're working on two banks of three center midfielders and three central defenders. Seemingly there's a fascination with there's a lot that's not being addressed in the middle of the park, essentially through that spine of the team.
Yeah.
I guess we've got an interesting thing again today. And then, the funny thing with this is it hasn't been usually very convincing as to what our middle three is for the three in the middle of the park. The thing that was so dire and kind of fascinating from last season, was so many kind of ill performances that still kind of merit their place in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
But yet we seemingly want to, shuffle. I remember previously we shuffled the defense so often. And I mean, we still are shuffling the defense so often. So that's the thing now.
Yeah.
So using all our defensive options, not looking any better for the more bodies at the back.
No.
And, and then kind of further up the pitch, looking at the middle of the park, just being incredibly unconvincing with the options we had that were there. So it's been staggering that he just hasn't had more of a chance, considering that the players who are certainly better in reputation and better in kind of overall skill set and probably value to this football club, but clearly not playing and not showing the potential that they do previously.
But I bet if Darren Moore was pressed on it, he'd say, well, you needed to learn all these things and now he's taken them on board. You can see how good he's become. So what we don't know is how true that is, or how much that is just shielding yourself from an obvious criticism. But he's
Yeah.
lived up. He's playing in the way that I would have expected from what I've seen of him. And I know that's been glimpses, and it's maybe not been against the best opposition, but I feel like he's just fulfilled. He's giving us a full game's worth of what he's done when he's been given little moments previously.
Yeah.
If you've only got 10 minutes, you can only do what you can just do your thing in 10 minutes. And given a start, he seems to be doing that throughout games now. So, I mean, I suppose it's not a great time to go pointing fingers, but the main thing is well done, Fizeo. And
Completely.
the more we see of you, the better really from this point on, it seems, because there's an awful lot to that young man's game, and he seems to have a great attitude as well.
I want to kind of put a pin in that note. I mean, I appreciate you coming and saying some things that are positive, because I think there are some positives to kind of focus on. And so let's give a few kudos to a player that we thought would be decent and is doing really, really well in FDB.
Yeah.
So a lot of kudos to him, and I'm really glad to see that he's nailed down a starting place in the middle of the park.
And we had a last little flourish from roaming goal threat.
Yes,
Liam Palmer, where he played a 1-2 with Bannon on sort of fed the ball across to Bannon on the edge of the box, and then got on his bike, made his way into the area, and Bannon just hung a cross up for him, and he got a really good contact on it. Just unluckily, the keeper was right behind it as well, but it was almost one of those, almost anywhere else in the goal probably would have really challenged the keeper and maybe would have sent us away with a very unlikely and pretty undeserved win at the end of the game. But it ends up being a point from behind, which we haven't done in something like 26 previous matches.
That sounds about right. It is a rare occurrence, right?
Yeah, very. So the tricky thing in this season is it's so hard to know where these clubs lie, because going into this run of games, these 3 games ending with Lincoln today, when we started that run of matches, they were 17th, 18th, and 19th. So you look at that thinking, right, these are 3 teams we should go and beat shortly. If we're a top half team, even, we should be looking to kind of fill our boots. This should be 9 points from 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, probably 7. But is that the case? I mean, we beat Bolton, and Bolton were flying high. Bolton have lost every game since we beat them. It's hard to know who sits where in this division still. I know there's people talk about look at it things after 10 games, don't look at it for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Interestingly, we beat Bolton. I mean, some interesting kind of revelations and kind of movements in the world of League One this week. I mean, also we beat Wigan as well, right? Who were kind of high flying and I think tied for 2nd or 3rd or whatever it is now in the league. Beat Bolton. Bolton have their captain has had a giant fallout with their manager, Ian Everts. Did you see this? Yeah. And then he's ended up in the non-league.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
He's completed a free transfer, because I'm like, how can you do that? Well, there's no transfer window in the National League. So there is a transfer window in the Football League, so you can get them out. So,
I mean, considering Ian Everett is, I think, the only manager thus far we've singled out for special treatment post-game, or the only opposing manager. Yeah, he seems like a complete arse, so I can see why you wouldn't want to hang around with him.
And then also in separate news, I mean, Charlton have sacked Nigel Adkins. So interesting to that one is, first game of the season, we pick up a point away at Charlton. We think this is a good point. And I think in the context of getting started, especially with following that with 3 or 4 wins, I think it was, right? We had an incredible start. So that seemed good, but Charlton have been languishing in the relegation spots. And
Donny, who we beat in that initial run, are looking like, they might be down very, almost ridiculously early, given their their performance so far this season.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. It's very tricky to look at and know, and then add to that this is a Sheffield Wednesday team. I never know what formation we're going to play ahead of time. I never know who's going to be picked, and no matter who's picked or where they're playing, getting a performance of any consistency out of them seems to be something beyond Darren Moore's abilities as well. Like, because sometimes he has kept a winning team and then it doesn't work the second time. Oftentimes he's changed it, and those changes have hurt us. I don't know, just very strange. But we should get on to this weekend's match.
Yeah.
So completing this little triple of 17th, 18th, 19th, we take on Lincoln, who have moved up since that 17th, 18th, 19th comparison was made. They have moved up the table somewhat, and they've picked up some results of late. But probably a team that's going to finish mid-table, we would think.
Probably, yeah. But probably, like, I think some people kind of mark them down as kind of like outside chances of the top six. That they seem to be one of those teams. They seem to be a bit of a kind of MK Dons type team, I guess, that's kind of middling, but might have a push of it. And probably previously someone like Doncaster before their recent kind of implosion. So, yeah, that's interesting. Interesting to see Chris Maguire back. I mean, I'll jump ahead. I want to go back and talk about the lineup, but, you know, Chris Maguire only noticed when he flopped to the floor on the 4th minute, which, kind of brings us back to what Chris Maguire is and what he does best.
I had the exact same thing, you know, Luke, because I didn't get a chance to see any of the lineup, and obviously I'm not. I mean, I don't know who plays for Lincoln City. I'm not. That's not. I don't have time or space in my head to learn who plays for Lincoln City. So coming into the match, I had no idea. But yeah, exactly. Seeing him fall over and sort of gingerly pick himself up and sort of rub his hands on his bum as he stood up in his sort of inimitable style, I was like, "That's Chris Maguire," and lo and behold, 'twas he.
His big old stocky Scottish behind.
He's got a real dump truck on him, yeah.
He has, yeah.
Little guy with a dump truck.
So let's do a little bit of Luke-less lineups. First comment. Happy with the 3 in the middle of the park. Probably the best we can do to players available, but the 3 at the back is woeful. If this is a 3-5-2, looking at the lineup,
I couldn't work out what we were supposed to be doing at the back.
Really. I don't know.
I think it was 4 most of the time, but there were points where they were all stood in a line with all 5 of them back. So, yeah, odd.
Don't know which I prefer out of Johnson and Brown at the left back berth, but don't think the answer is both of them. And I don't really know which one I want to see as centre back, considering this is a 3-5-2. So let's see how this plays out. Just imagining the worst finale of The Bachelor with me contemplating suicide over giving my final rose to Brown or Johnson. The anti-King and Worthington, if they're doubling up. I can't believe we benched Dunkley.
Yeah, Dunkley. This is the thing that's just so. This is what doesn't.
Even for ourselves, purveying a Sheffield Wednesday podcast, where the narrative of our thoughts about Shea Dunkley is that he's not particularly great.
Yes.
Generally, he's been pretty good the past few games.
He's had his best run of games in a Sheffield Wednesday shirt, probably these last 3 games. Yeah.
And then we decide to toss that out the window to do
for Palmer as well.
For Palmer, I know. We can all play Football Manager, right? We can all think about what we want to do. I don't know. I think with the options we have right now, I don't see why it isn't Hunter right back. I don't know why we don't just play a 4 at the back. And then we go Dunkley and Iorfa at centre back, and then Palmer at left back. if we're really doing that, and then go hunt it right back. I mean, I don't know. We've got two left back options who aren't particularly convincing at left back, and then they aren't convincing up the pitch, and then maybe in that hinterland as a wing back, they're okay because they're neither things.
Yeah,
I think that's probably where they're based, but I don't think that wing back thing is the 3-5-2 is not working for us, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought Jaden Brown, if he wasn't on the pitch, I don't think we would have noticed today.
Yeah, I think that's true. But then, so to make a kind of connection from a point earlier, which was a point I wanted to make, but I want to try and kind of linger on some of the positivity we had there.
Yeah.
So so the mentality is typically when you said, more would come out and say, well, Fizz hasn't shown the elements to his game previously for me to pick him.
Yeah.
And then probably, I guess, previous managers, Gary Monk would probably say similar things, and Tony Pulis, exactly. But I imagine something else that's kind of connected with that. It's interesting you've said that, because midweek, or actually not actually midweek, it was actually the pre-match presser, either Thursday or Friday, from Moore talking about this game. He's asked about Corbeanu, because it's come out in the press that Corbeanu basically, if he's not getting enough opportunities, will go back to Wolves and go elsewhere, because there's plenty of suitors at this level, which is fair enough. So he kind of came out and said that, like, Corbeanu has things to work on his game.
Yeah.
But the problem I have, it's the same excuse you said again, right? It's that thing you brought up previously. You brought up in this episode. So the thing I think about, though, is like, what else am I really seeing from any other viable options?
I know.
Making me think, again, like, why can't we play our shiny wingers?
That's the implication, is that the others are doing that. And then you've got a player in Shodipo who seems to get endless opportunities and has done nothing. Outside of his goal that was disallowed, Shodipo has been ruinously bad in the Sheffield Wednesday. And what is it about him what is he doing that apparently Corbeanu can't do? Because Corbeanu, every time I see him, looks dangerous and exciting and gets on the ball and bundles through tackles. And Shodipo does none of that and does no defending. He's not working hard to get back. I don't know what. Maybe we're back to the Alan Irvine thing. I don't have any badges, but I am not seeing the players who are getting the opportunities again and again and again doing anything that will be beyond these young players who are showing promise. And the other one we haven't seen any of is So or Sal.
Yeah,
I don't. No, I don't want to do a Heffernan thing and imply that all these players who aren't playing are better.
Yeah,
but we chop and change and drop people in and try things out, but it's all from this very limited palette. It's like, I'm going to keep doing all my paintings out of black, white, and green. And it's like, but you've got blue and red and yellow. No, black, white, and green. I know what but everything looks brown and bad. No. I keep chopping and changing them. Horses for courses. When is their course? No, I mean, so it's interesting. So I think obviously we're back to where we were last week. We were in the lead. We squandered another lead. It's frustrating to be where we are. In terms of those positives, I think, well, we'll work through in a bit more of a kind of a measured manner. But I think there were some positives. But what's worrying for me again is I think all three of these games, I'd be hard pressed if I was like in a debating society. I'd be hard pressed to say that we deserve to win any of the three games that we've just played.
No.
And in fact,
Wimbledon. It's the strongest shade on that spectrum of
the strongest shade, yeah. But today in Cambridge, I think we're in this batch. We've had a lot of these sort of games where I think probably they've been the better team for 75, 80% of the match. But when we had still 20%, and we were probably quite a bit better and more dangerous than they were because we've got better players. So the period of time when we're doing something, it's better. It's a bit like in boxing, you know, like you can eke out the rounds at 10-9 or you can have a 10-8 and like, oh, so if a football match is like 10 rounds, they've won 8 of them, eking them out. We've won 2 and we've probably done 2 10-8 rounds. But overall, that still means you lose and you will not been the better team. And I thought today was one of those games where it's like, we had that period where it looked like really we had them rattled. We could have got a couple, but the rest of the game was theirs, and we had a lot of let-offs today.
Oh yeah, I know. Can I just finalize a couple of things with the lineup as well?
Please
disappointed that we decided to leave out Patterson.
Yeah.
I'm still not 100% convinced of what we're getting from Berahino when he plays.
No.
I'm really disappointed still that, I guess he's still injured. I guess they talked about, I think in the pre-match about like a checking in on the fitness of Hutchinson.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear because I haven't heard much from him recently. So that's something we've learned, that Lewis Gibson's out for a considerable amount of time. What's it now? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing. And the latest on Windass is still pretty woolly, but maybe we'll be, if we're lucky, before the turn of the year, which feels like a month or so later than we've been told previously. I know it was very early when we last heard dates, but and who knows about Luongo? Maybe they stopped asking.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. With the lineup I follow, we're reckoning it was a 4-2-3-1 with Brown. It's the idea Brown and Johnson doubling up on left, but Brown being the one who was further forward. With they were reckoning FDB was going to be out on the right.
Yeah, I think it was probably closer to a 4-4-2. I'm trying to think now, actually, because we sort of asked Cunt to do everything on that right flank, I think.
Oh, totally. But I mean, he can do it pretty well, and it doesn't seem to be any weakness. So every team we play against applies all the pressure down the left because they've highlighted it's an area of weakness to Wednesday. So Hunt is a better defender out of those things, but he's not tested that often.
No. And I thought Palmer had a nice line occasionally in, stepping onto the ball and making things happen. I thought Palmer had a pretty assured game at centre back, by and large. Apart from he did sort of give us kittens almost straight away with his really poor pass across to Bailey Peacock Farrell, which put us in trouble.
Yeah.
And we just about recovered from that problem, and then I also decided that was a good time to run up the pitch and got tackled as well. So they got 2 chances for the price of 1 bit of pressure. Did Lincoln. Interesting. It's strange because I thought Iorfa had a decent game by and large. Someone who did not have the best game was Bannon.
No, I don't know when. I don't know. I'm the odd excitement that will come, the positive and the silver lining from the day that Bannon doesn't play for Sheffield Wednesday anymore is the fact that I don't have to see him take corners anymore.
This was a tour de force of bad set pieces today.
I can't remember. He has the worst ratio of good corners to bad corners, and yet because he's highly paid and he's the captain, he takes all of them.
The best corner of the day was taken by Corbener.
Yeah, there's one right to death, right?
Right at the death. No, but his they were awful today because 2 or 3 times he just went over everybody and then sort of was moaning and shouting, and you're like, surely you can see that there's nobody that. How is it anybody else's fault if you've kicked it 3 feet over everybody's head? What are they supposed to do? He was poor today. I think that he was kind of the anchor for the midfield three, with Deli Bashiru and Adeniran pushing on, trying to be more attacking, and Bannon sitting and holding. But his defensive work as a holding sitting midfielder was awful. So many times the ball just passed him, but the game just passed him by today more often than not. He slowed us down unnecessarily. I mean, it's rare that I come out of a game with criticism for Bannon, but I just thought today this was one of his worst performances in like probably a number of years. This was really, really desperately bad.
Wow.
And I know Wing is kind of becoming a bit of a boo boy's target, and he is frustrating, but at least he's getting in positions to make mistakes and miss chances. You know, there's something to be said for putting yourself out there and making things happen. And I think Wing's actually more suited to that kind of holding role. One of the worst problems we had today was Berahino. I think it was in the first half. Berahino passed it back to Bannon through a crowd of players. He was under pressure and he passed it back to Bannon. Bannon just sort of like watched it go by him and immediately put them on the attack, because he was like last line of defence. He was in line with the defenders and just looked at this pass with disdain because it was a foot away from him, like he's Roy of the Rovers, and immediately put Lincoln on the front foot, but because of it. I don't know, just a lot of frustration today. A lot of near calls and misses. I don't know.
Do you think, though, that for the nature of that we sacrificed Bannon for the fact that, you know, Adeniran and Deli Bashiru can be decent today?
I think we liked that. That's good. So that sort of clicked in. It was late on in the game, wasn't it, against Cambridge, that we ended up with those three as the midfield, and it did look very dynamic and exciting. So I can see why we've gone back to it. But yes, you're absolutely right. Like we're basically like there's nobody that's very interested in defending there or has any real natural ability. But I don't know. I just thought Bannon, he looked off the pace all game. He just looked a little bit like just a yard behind everything. And there's a couple of times where he passed the ball straight out of play at short distance and things. I don't know what was. It was the sort of performance, if you hear afterwards, he had a stomach bug or something, that would sort of explain a lot. But I don't know that we're going to hear that. So do you want to go through? Have you got sort of more structured happenings from the match?
I do, yeah. I mean, the 8th minute, I wonder if that was. We had a number of just. It's another distinction of Sheffield Wednesday. Like, I'm glad the players have a degree of comfort and feel comfortable executing the game plan, but we can't have comfort be complacency. Like, and we're just so complacent at the back. And that was, I think it was the 8th minute. I think it was one of those many back passes. I'm just like, it's complacent as fuck, terrible. And then Iorfa went down. Thanks a lot as well. So I said, great, well done, everybody. And then we lose him for the corner. The first corner was worrying, and then they had a second corner. The second corner was mildly better. Real chef's kiss of shite defending, really, I must say. My only mild delight of the first 12 minutes was Pearson misnaming Gregory as Greggy.
Nice, Greggy.
That was nice. First 20 minutes, I made a note, though, to say this is ponderous dour shite.
Yes.
Like, it's just bad. It was just awful. And just giving, again, that mentality of, like, you know, one of our episodes, we had a cold open with us doing Radiohead's Just and saying, you do it to yourself, you do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Wednesday. So much of this is just invited upon us by our complacent, poor defending. and I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know why we continually go with it. There's this mentality of, oh, how great it is that we build from the back. And then you've talked about previously, like, Moore seems to think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I must be like cripplingly honest with you. Like, I don't think I've seen anything that's come from it unless we've been on the counter. It only ever
No.
works where, like, we've mopped up a chance and Peacock Farrell rolls it out and we go on the counter quickly. We're not
Yeah.
very good
Yeah.
at that because there's seemingly, we don't have any of our quick players on the pitch,
No, we're not
or it
allowed
gets
to.
up to Gregory and then it gets, Gregory's either slow as he is, which isn't a strong point, we know, or
No.
he's just isolated as well. I don't know what the point of playing two up top today was. It's interesting you mentioned like the benefits of having that dynamic midfield free with the two
Yeah.
pushing on in the hole. Like, that's a great idea, but I don't think
Yeah.
Berahino's not that quick, is he? I don't think.
Doesn't seem to be. I think he was at some point, and I wondered, like
Series of injuries and stuff.
as a player who's had a huge fall from grace, I wonder if there's not a big injury somewhere there. Because that, if you lose your pace, not many players are the same after that happens to them.
No. I mean, you then have to redefine what your kind of strong points are. I mean, and and not every player is as talented as someone like Wayne Rooney to be like, well, actually, I'm quite a decent football player.
Yeah.
Even though that's a big damnation for him, right? Because he's not the he was nowhere near the same player, and that was a disappointment, I think, for everyone who supported him or watched him play. I made that thought about the whole because I was seeing how it panned out. I've made that note about Gregory at the back, Brown further up. If that's the case, why are we doing two defenders or two defensive-minded kind of wing-back players? That would surely give us an opportunity for, I don't know, another umpteenth chance for Shadipo, or I don't know. Here's a radical idea: Corbino or So.
I know. Yeah.
One of these players. Also, I'm wondering, like, if we're getting into real desperation here, Rich. I've got a real radical idea, which maybe we might try at some point when Moore's trying to save his job and does more desperate rolls of the dice. Canberry at centre back.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you. Like Berahino, really, we've not seen outside of that first game. I've been pretty underwhelmed with Berahino.
Yeah.
And maybe I was overhyped after that first game because obviously he got his goal and you're sort of thinking like, great, well, this is, he was sort of hitting crossfield passes. He looked comfortable on the ball. He doesn't seem to be that anymore, or what? Maybe he was never that. Maybe it's just one isolated game. I do think he carries a threat in a way that I can see why you want to work him in there. But then I don't know whether he was unlucky today or just kind of outmatched a little bit, but there's a few times where he like worked his man and made a space.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't bounce right for him or he didn't catch it right. I don't think him and Gregory are a good partnership, or not yet. Maybe it can build.
Sure.
I didn't see much to build on today. I didn't get the feel like we were, 2 or 3 matches away from some beautiful what do I want to say? Telepathic connection between the two, because it just didn't feel like that. So I thought it was one of Gregory's poorer games. I thought Berahino maybe on balance was slightly better value out of the two front men because he carried a bit more of a threat, but it didn't really work for having. I know people talk about, we should just play 4-4-2. Just play 4-4-2 and get it forward. And you're like, yeah, but why? Like today, we didn't have that. It would have been much better to have another body in midfield and boss the midfield than what we did. Whether we've got anybody to boss the midfield, I don't know. Right. But like, that would have been much more effective for us. Or playing a right winger in front of Jack Hunt, so there's a bit of interplay on both flanks. Either way, I think I'd probably prefer either of those options to having two forwards when it just work as a combination.
I mean, I'm not a fan of seeing an isolated striker because I hate the moment where you build it up to the end to have that anticlimax, and that seems to be a big thing from John Pearson's actually observations about a few times. You know, we pinged it up to Gregory, and Gregory kind of got that touch back for no one. You know, he was completely isolated. So I get that point, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe to be mature about this, we're not going to have it everywhere in the middle of the park, you know, all the way across the pitch right now. Maybe we have to pick and decide. I think, as you've kind of said, I think I'd definitely be about for, if it's not quite a 4-4-2, then at least if we can have double up characters on the wings, that would be something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
The 32nd minute, I thought that was a pen when Johnson felled the Lincoln player in the box.
Right.
I mean, it was a bit more on the kind of soft end of the spectrum, but I don't know. It's Marvin Johnson. He's not particularly good at.
No. So, which can you remember where that incident sort of came about?
That was they played a really lovely through ball. They kind of had it out on the left. Wednesday's right, their left, and they kind of cut back in. They fed a player in who was kind of on the angle. Two players kind of crumbling back. Johnson, I can't remember who the defender was.
Yeah,
we were kind of scrambling. I think they did spurn the chance a bit, but it was a bit of a let off because if you had any better player,
I thought that one wasn't. That was the player 19 just went down between two men. Is that right? Yeah. I thought he just went over like a sack of sponge. I don't remember seeing a contact between our player and him. It wasn't good. It was a bad bit of defending to end up in the situation, and terrible. I was just waiting on him shooting. But I think, I almost thought he was lucky not to get a card because I thought it was a strange situation to go down, and it felt easier for him to probably get the shot away than so we had a perfect angle from seeing the faces of those three players. What I didn't see is there any clips or backs, clicks of heels or whatever behind that. So it may be that that's something that looks much more like a pen on rewatch. But from my perspective, there was two players that didn't even quite get to the man, and he flopped over. And I sort of feel like this ref today, if it had been, would have given it because he gave a lot to Lincoln today. Chris Maguire, he bought pretty much everything he was selling.
Yeah, fair enough.
And he was selling a lot.
The 35th minute, I missed it on the first time, but I went back and saw it. The FTB's heroics to kind of hold off a player, then make another one. That was brilliant. Good ball to Berahino, who then slightly overdoes his through ball to Gregory. That was disappointing. Another bit of fortuitous for Wednesday moment, like the 37th minute. Brown fortuitously hit it long to Berahino, who was kind of cluttered, and it kind of bounced onto FTB. Looked like it was going to be positive and promising, but then it wasn't. Then nothing really came of that. That was a minute after that, you had the moment where Berahino had it on the angle and he fired it low at the keeper, which was probably probably outside the goal, probably Wednesday's best chance of the game. 40th minute, Berahino doing some more through ball magics, only this time in the other way, where he did a through ball to Maguire. We really got off.
We did get. That's the one I was talking about. Bannon just watching it go by him.
Yes. Yeah.
Bannon could have easily stuck his foot out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the best idea from Berahino. But I don't understand what was going through Bannon's mind just watching that go by. For a guy who constantly wants the ball and wants to be on it, why did he choose that as the moment that he's like, you know what, this one's not for me. I'll let this one pass me by.
Yeah. That's about it for the first half for me, really.
Yeah.
I can see this might be a bit of a key theme I'm going to go on. Like, we were We were pretty fortuitous today.
Yeah.
We also kind of did an undoing on ourselves against Lincoln. Lincoln's goal, which we'll get onto, I thought was a decent goal for them, bad for
Yes.
ourselves. That was the
Yeah.
only moment I felt that they showed any great attitude in front of the net.
But then, yeah, so I didn't. Well, yeah, certainly in front of the net. But there was a couple of moments that really worried me that second half. I don't. You might have got a better view, but there was a penalty shout, like a sliding tackle that where the ball sort of skidded across the front of our goal, and you're almost just waiting for somebody to touch it in, and we got away with that one.
Yep. Well,
That was very early on in the second half.
They really came out the blocks, but it was really farcical from Wednesday, from everything I saw. My highlights were, I don't exactly remember a specific, but the 47th minute I said farcical. That's the only word I had for that one. 48th minute, then we followed up again with Lincoln nearly scored. That's the one that I think was the 47th minute, the one where it was like Iorfa did the tackle, and then Peacock Farrell couldn't quite get there, and it drifted across the goal, which fortuitously for us, Wednesday had Palmer there who cleared.
Yes, yeah, that's the one who sort of squirted right across the front of the goal. Yeah, and they had another fairly similar sort of incident where I think Bailey Peacock Farrell it was a save really, but it was a similar sort of. You just wonder how we got away with it, really.
I think they had a contentious moment on the 49th minute, didn't they? And then that was the one that I think the ref kind of bottled it a bit and kind of called it back because Johnson did a really stupidly high boot outside the area. I just said he's terrible at left back. I think we've had times of thinking like I think previously there was a game last week, right, where we conceded against Wimbledon. We conceded 2 goals against Wimbledon. We were 2 goals in the lead. We threw it away. We squandered the lead once again.
Yeah.
Not good at holding on to leads. Not good at coming back from leads when we're down, right? That's Sheffield Wednesday story. So I thought in that situation, like the only substitution I thought was meaningful in that was to take Brown off because he looked really tired and really leggy.
Yeah.
And then he dropped a bollock, which we conceded the second goal from against Wimbledon last week.
Yeah.
So
don't you think you've mentioned the complacency at the back. Don't you think that is an across the board issue? And like, this is one of these like fundamental, like school kids drilled into you. Anybody that's played any sort of level of football, isn't the first rule of defending that you don't let it bounce? You deal with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
We have a team that lets it bounce. And I don't know whether it starts with Iorfa. Iorfa's got a very lackadaisical style. He's languid in his approach and things like that. And that does feed into the way he plays the game. But he can take chances because he is 6'4" and mainly leg. Like he can make mistakes and recover from them in a way that very few people are able to. But that was typical from Johnston. It was a poor ball forward that favoured him, and he dawdled. And by dawdling, he then puts himself in a position where he kind of hangs out a limp high boot, which thankfully got him out of the penalty that he then gave away because he got all handsy and grabby.
That's that's completely the thing. Like, just attack the ball in a defensive mind, right?
Well, yeah, grab the moment, grab the grab the emphasis that's on you and your moment of play. It's very difficult for the attacking player in that situation. It's difficult for them to make something happen in the position where that ball was like kind of lolloping through the air. The easiest thing to do is be the defender and head it out of play or head it the halfway line. He did was let bounce, which hands the impetus to the attacker. He then has to scramble and put his high boot up. But if you're an attacker, that's the sort of thing like if you kick the ball out of play or you give possession away, you react to the high boot. Otherwise, you run into the box unencumbered and then he's panic stations.
Mm. I think that there's a moment on the spectrum, Rich, between complacency and panic that Wednesday need to achieve.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is they fear going to the element of panic, or it's been drilled into them to be comfortable, but they're misnaming that comfort as complacency.
But Palmer had a moment of doing it. I can't remember. I think it might be the first half, but again, he like let the ball bounce 2 or 3 times, and the situation's getting more and more dangerous. So, are they not being coached? Because we talked about this was one of the things that started to happen. Carlos, the season where it all sort of broke down, the bad periods. And I remember us talking and looking, and like Tom Lees was one of the people that we would talk about. But there's just certain things you're supposed to do as a conscientious member of the team, as a defender. There's just certain rules that you live by and play by. Like if you're a centre back who gets dragged out onto the sort of byline with a winger or a forward, you have a job then to make sure either I come away with the ball or I stop this player. And we don't do that. We let the player go past us and let him have a free run. There's other things where it's like, if you get caught out, you just run backwards. Like I hear Gary Neville talking about it all the time. Like you can't perfectly read every bit of play, but when something goes wrong, you can run back and get yourself back in position and have a rush to do that. We dawdle. We watch the other players do their thing. This is just inherently, we've got lots and lots of bad habits in the way that we play, particularly at the back. And we've got a defender who's our manager. So is there no coaching going on? Is it bad coaching going on? What's happening that we've got all these bad traits that just seem to be baked into our game? Let the ball bounce, react later. I don't know. It's very odd. It's very odd to watch, because you'd hope one way you could go with a defender as a manager is that everybody defends. We've had, Stuart Gray, everybody's job was to defend, and that was pretty dour in its own way. But it's like nobody's job is to defend now.
Mm-hmm. And we're not very good at the attacking part, right?
Yeah, that too. But we did have our moments that second half, didn't we? We had some good.
Yeah, I mean, the 50th minute, I'd say that, Peacock Farrell made a good save. Poor defending, good save is what I commented there. And then I think that kind of, after that 52nd minute, we had a good break, and Adeniran went down after being fouled.
Yeah.
The free kick wasn't terrible, I'll put it that much.
No, yeah.
And then surged into life. It seemed like we had a real spate and a real run for about 10, 15 minutes, I'd say. And like that, we undeservedly take the lead on the 54th minute.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Some more lovely work from Fizeo Delibashiru. I loved it. He had one moment in the first half where he did that and dropped his shoulder, and like half their team bought the dummy. And he did it again on the edge of the box, and this time got his shot away. And the keeper did a good job with it, but Adeniran was onto it and finished from the angle really, really well. That was not an easy job to get the ball in from where he got that contact. Did a fine job. Did young Den. I think he'd had a very anonymous game until he scored.
Oh yeah. But then he was kind of instrumental in that period of like 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. Like that was the moment, I think, a few minutes later where he rolled it across the 6-yard box, but no one was there to get a touch on it. Yeah.
And he also did one, he cut back for Gregory, who poked it around across the front of the box as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. So we had a little period of kind of pomp and presenting danger.
I've noted about the goal. FTB has the power and composure to turn and search for the ball to wrestle and goalward. Griffiths does a Wildsmith and powers out, and bending on the angle of the lot to do, powers it in. Once again, Luke and Rich and probably a ton of other Wednesdayites feel vindicated about FDB.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a comment I want to kind of bring in here, Rich, shit but lucky.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's fair. So they made a change that,
yeah,
on the face of it, I didn't dislike. I thought, didn't think wasn't Gregory's finest game.
He was okay.
I like Patterson. Yeah, oh no, yeah. I'm not saying he was bad, but it wasn't. He wasn't pulling up any trees. And I like Patterson. I like his energy. So I could see the sense behind the change. The timing of it was pretty bad. And almost immediately you could see the effect it had was of just killing our momentum. That we'd had the momentum in the match for the first time, and we made our substitution, and it just went. We never react well to gaps in play, so it could have been a player getting injured, or a long substitution, or their substitution. It could have been anything that would put us off our stride, because Lord knows it is easy to put Sheffield Wednesday off their stride right now. But it was our own, once again, a self-inflicted deadening of the momentum.
So I didn't really want to see Gregory go off. I was happy to see Patterson come on. Didn't particularly want to see Gregory go off. My note is Kumar Simpson going, And so a theoretical question. We have lots of philosophical pondering questions here on Different Gravy. But Rich, a question for you is what I want to ask you today. How do you know if a cart horse is knackered?
I don't know. How do you know if a cart horse is knackered?
I don't know. It's a cart horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, the thing is that to be fair to Darren Moore, this is a like for like sort of substitution, and generally Patterson brings a lot of energy and kind of go to the team. What he couldn't have known was that Patterson would just absolutely fail to establish himself in the game in any meaningful sense, and would look honestly come on and look half cut. He was so off the pace of this game. I don't know. He never caught up. He had moments where the ball broke to him and he just looked surprised and didn't drive forward with it in any way. He had moments where players sort of were staring at him, hoping he would move into space so that they could play the ball through for him, and he just stood and watched them. This was not a good showing from Pato Colump. And to be fair to Darren Moore, I guess, how do you know that that's going to happen? But yeah, in retrospect, not only was it bad timing for the substitution, an unnecessary substitution, but it was also a bad change to make in terms of the personnel as well.
Yeah.
So how long was it then after the substitution that they scored their equaliser?
I think I had it down as the 78th minute. I'm just going to take a quick look at the result to see what kind of official timing I got from Flashcore here. They make it to be the 80th minute.
Okay.
Chris Maguire knocked in the corner.
Did he?
Apparently, that's what they're telling me.
Oh, he took the corner.
To the corner, yeah. He didn't score. That was Monsma.
Monsma, yeah. What happened at that? So that just looked a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up with 3 Wednesday players in a heap on the floor. Was it just a simple cross and a header?
Pretty much, yeah.
I know it's another one that doesn't look great for Bailey Peacock-Farrell because it landed at his feet and he didn't deal with it very well.
I guess there's an overall arching question. So do you think he should have done better with that?
I've only seen it twice, once live and once in a shoddy replay, a whole length of a pitch away from me on the screen. But it looked like one that maybe he should have kept out, or he had a decent chance of stopping. Yeah, it sort of looks like it threw him a bit.
I think the defense I would give of him is the fact that like it's a downward header. It's met with some real power.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah, it's a
know,
good header.
it's a good header, but the fact that a player of his caliber can't keep that out and it's going underneath his body is pretty damning, I guess.
I just think anytime as a goalkeeper that it touches you and goes in, you've got to feel like maybe I could have done better, because your positioning was good enough to get you to the ball. So just on that level, then there's a bit of a question to be asked. I don't. There's certainly were saves he made today that I wouldn't have trusted other Wednesday goalkeepers to make.
Sure.
So it's harder, but overall, we're constantly in a position of kind of, it's a question to be asked, isn't it? I think. So we tried to kind of build up another head of steam and get back into it. They looked, Lincoln for their part looked very happy with their point that they'd secured and started time wasting and etc., going down injured, making mass substitutions. So we brought on Corbeau, which was nice.
Yeah, probably a bit too late, I think, but
probably a bit too late.
Yeah.
But he sort of did as advertised. The first thing he did was push through a couple of challenges and nearly work a chance for a teammate. And then the second thing he did was push through a few challenges and nearly cut it back for a teammate. He took a good corner. I thought a good cameo from him. I would like to see more of him. He seems like something different to what we have. You can see he worries players. Today, all day, when Adeniran turned up, what he was doing was turning his man and running at them. What Deli Bashiro was doing that was causing the problems was turning and running at them. And Corbeau's another one that can run at them with pace and power. So it made sense to bring him on and have a third threat of that type, because they didn't seem to be able to deal with it. The third substitution we made was Shodipo, who did nothing.
Yeah.
Apart from completely balls up what would have been our last gasp chance by kind of tricking himself and falling over on his bum when he should have taken possession of the ball on the side of the box.
He's been an almighty disappointment, hasn't he, Shodipo?
I have no idea how he got so many goals last year. I can't see any of that.
Especially the thing that's really crippling and really annoying is the fact that, like, seemingly we have so many kind of young talents at this football club who seem to be here because of Darren Moore. And you just can't get a fucking song out of them.
No. I do think a bit. Do you remember? Was it Ranieri that got called the Tinker Man?
It is, yeah.
There's a bit of that with Darren Moore. He overthinks, and he sort of, you can almost see him thinking himself out of the normal, sensible thing to do, and then trying the next. It's like they talk about brainstorming, and is like one of the worst ways to make decisions, because you end up picking a terrible left field option because you're all kind of bored and there's some kind of Stockholm syndrome going on. Like, it's just a bad forum for ideas. And it feels like Darren Moore's brain is a bad forum for ideas. The sensible options get shot down and we end up with the fifth way and it doesn't work. I just, momentum and in games is just it's so intangible and slippery, particularly for our team at this point in time. There's no real natural rhythm. We don't have a base to the team. We don't have something we're building up. We don't have a spine that we build around, really. I suppose to an extent, we've got Bailey, Peacock, Farrell, Iorfa, Bannon and Gregory play pretty much every game from the start. So maybe there is a spine, but none of those are reliable. But yeah, momentum, that making that change when we made it, I've just watch so many Sheffield Wednesday games where we do that. Oh, we're doing okay, so let's make a change to make it even better. And then it goes. That little slippery eel of momentum just escapes. And this was just another one of those today. I don't think we deserved to win. I think we were maybe lucky that it was only a draw. But we could have won, and we should have won. At the end, we should have won.
Yeah.
Because we were ahead and we were in the ascendancy. So we're back thinking we're not getting enough out of this squad of players. And I know we talk about growing and that was good midweek for resilience. And
well, we don't say that. That's the PR machine of Darren Moore.
Yeah. Growing. Glimmers. Lessons. That's Darren Moore. But at some point, don't we have to stop learning lessons and like put our knowledge out on the pitch? Yeah. Like at some point, there's, I know they say, I know there's like, the phrase "every day's a school day," but every match can't be a school day. Lessons learned. Can we just play? Can we have like a sports day or something where we actually just go play football and not do lessons today? Thank you. So, any more from your notes there? Any pithy bits?
So prior to us doing this podcast, I might actually include it as a cold open, I think I will. Rich did the amazing character of the sports commentator who's doing a film review. I'm going to include that here.
In this movie of two halves, it's hard to say whether the dark side or the light side won.
Okay. So following that, I've got a similar kind of mentality. It's funny because I actually wrote this note before Rich kind of started doing this thing. But I thought I'll try and do my own sports commentator. This might not be as good as Rich's. As a full-time whistle blows, you only get what you give, rings out across Hillsborough Stadium. Seemingly a new radical idea for the Sheffield Wednesday side. The Essex faithful, who have the team have them down on their knees, are only hoping that Moore's men get the dreamer's disease and are gonna pull through. But currently, this is looking as good as a commercial success as the rest of the New Radicals' only record. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Lincoln City 1.
Very good.
The ground staff know this, so you're going to put in some more fucking effort to win a fucking game.
It's not even halves of good football, is it? It's like 10-minute spells of good football.
It was really scraping the lint drawer of Sheffield Wednesday's laundry,
So we it's a draw. So we do a honourable mention and a villain of the piece. So let's do villain first. Who's the villain today, Luke?
Who's the villain? That's a good question. I think I'm going to have to join you with talking about Bannon, I think.
Yeah. It's the first time I've ever come away from it. Well, maybe not ever, but it's the first time I can remember coming away from a game and thinking, maybe he doesn't get to start next week. Maybe somebody else gets to go. And I wouldn't mind seeing that midfield with Lewis Wing tried in the middle. I know he's got his critics, but he's 6'2", which brings a bit more to the table in terms of being a bit of a shield for our defence. He has some sort of killer instinct in terms of reading moments and getting forward for them, which we've never ever seen from Bannon. He's like one of those killer whales that's gone gone awry in SeaWorld and just simply wants to play with his food forever. Twist, doing Cruyff turns and Cruyff turns and Cruyff turns until they're all dizzy.
Bannon's Cruyff turns at SeaWorld.
Bannanfish, the documentary on Netflix, exposing the awful things that Darren Moore does to him behind the scenes. But yeah, that's an odd feeling to come away from a game and think, yeah, I don't know that I want to see Barry Bannon start the next game. And that's a weird place to be. And it really does speak to how poor his performance was today. So I guess it's all similarly fairly easy to pick our star man or our honourable mention. Or maybe I'm wrong there.
Your FDB, I think.
FDB. Yeah. He's already, you can tell, like, people are excited when he gets on the ball. There's kind of that, a bit like with JJ, you know, that kind of like hush of like, okay, here we go. Which is a nice thing to have with the player. Nice. It's nice to have that.
I can't wait till I'm back at Christmas and I can attend the game so I can partake in the only delicious point of the silence at Hillsborough, which is the hush when Deli Bashura gets. I mean,
it's quiet and muttery, and then it gets quiet but excited. the nuance of the various silent utterings of Hillsborough Stadium is something you really pick up as a fan. Oh well, there we go. Anything else to add at this stage?
No, that's about it. Just once again, Wednesday pistol every weekend.
Yep. That's the thing, isn't it? That sorry, go on.
Next weekend is the only the next game next weekend. We're not playing midweek. We're not doing
I don't think we're playing midweek. No.
Not got one of those pizza cup games.
Oh, I'd kill for a pizza game right now.
Oh, we drew, I guess in the news as well, we've got the game on the 7th of November, which has been moved for TV on the Sunday, which delightfully is 5:15 in the morning here, 12:15 p.m. GMT. So that's rubbish.
We get to go out at the first round proper.
Yeah, so we've now got relegated from last season. So instead of in the third round getting knocked out by Everton, now we just get knocked out by Plymouth, basically.
Yeah.
It's great.
But it's, Cheltenham on Saturday away. So, hopefully we'll pick some of the good bits out of these recent performances and cobble together a win from somewhere. That would be exciting, wouldn't it, Luke?
That would be something. I'd enjoy that, yeah.
Oh, you'd like that, wouldn't you, Luke? Oh, you'd like a win.
Oh, I would. Oh.
Oh, look at his face when he got to win. Oh, he's all smiles now.
It's almost like he understands.
Oh dear. Well, there we go. On that note, I will say cheerio to you, Luke, and cheerio to the folks at home, and wish you well for the intervening week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Cheerio. Bye.
Bye.
We aim to make this podcast carbon neutral by 2050, but until then, fuck all y'all.